discussions. Okay. Oh, let me get the other microphones first.
We still missed you Sunday night.
Oh, yes. I was sick.
Uh,
I had a plan. Cloud said no.
yeah.
They don't watch the plane make it to Haynes and then circle around. And then they said it was coming. And he said, go to Juneau.
It did come, but
So there was a question. Is there a special term for bird feet? Birds also just have chus. But birds also have chak. People have chak as well, which is fingernails or claws. That's the same word, chak. And then there's also something that you guys might notice with names as we learn more about suffixes and possessive pronouns and stuff like that. There's a clan name Yesh Chagu, which is raven's claw, but that would be like a claw I am holding in my hand, separated from the bird. So that you'll see that a lot with keet, uchu, hit, and so the uch, and there's a little bit of back and forth on this, and I'm not going to say one's right and one's wrong, but it seems to me for animals and for people, you do not need a possessive marker on the body part unless it's been removed. Got a rabbit foot around your neck for whatever reason. Qach, qusi. But if there's a rabbit here and I'm saying, look at qan, qach, qus. Look at its leg. That's how it seems to work. But there seems to be a little bit of back and forth on that. There could be, if it got a little cloudy, it could be because most often when we're talking about animal body parts, it has been removed, or we're sort of, when it becomes part of a clan name house, keet, gushi, hit. So that's another one where that possessive marker gets on there. But typically the rule that we see is when it's been removed, like they'll say qouch, shayi, it's because there's a headdress that's an actual wolf's head, but it's not the wolf's anymore. So that's kind of how that stuff tends to work. So chus would just be, and it gets a little tricky too because chus is foot, but it's also leg. Jin is hand, but it's also arm. And so you've got different parts of the arm. And so Tlingit can do a lot. Usually you would think that you're talking about a hand. You would think that you're talking about a foot. But then it could be referring to the whole arm or to the whole leg. Any other questions?
I have two. One is I'm writing words I want to learn on just on random pieces of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that the syllabus says you have a form you would like us to use.
Yeah, well, you don't have to use the form. I never brought it in. I'll probably bring it on Thursday. I can show you what it looks like. And we could use the form, or we cannot. I guess maybe we'll make a decision here. Let me see. I think, was I muted? Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so backing up. So what I'd like you guys to do for your midterm is to pick 15 nouns, 5 verbs, and then 3 other things. And we'll talk about what those other things could be. But for a noun, you just you pick a noun. And so what I would prefer is this is not something you already know, but you are picking 15 new nouns that you don't know yet, and you're going to, your midterm is you're going to stand up and recite these 23 words. You can write them in English, you can have a picture, you could use anything except for writing it in Tlingit and reading it. So there's 23, and we'll probably, I don't know, I can't remember what it says in the syllabus, but we'll probably do this maybe the weekend or the week before Thanksgiving break. So we'll do this in November. You'll have some time. We'll go over the words that you picked so that we can make sure that everybody can pronounce them if there's some tricky ones. And my big suggestion is to have some sort of reason for picking them. A lot of the students I've seen who do this, if they just sort of, if it's just a cluster from some page in the dictionary, it's pretty easy to tell. I don't think that that really works as well as having some reason. I want to get some terms for beating. I want to get some terms for cooking. I want to, if you've got some reason behind them, then it just tends to work better. So as far as committing these to memory, the different techniques that I've seen is some students they'll just write them on the board. They'll just write the numbers, right? They'll say 1 through 23. And they've got a process where they're just going one at a time and they remember. I saw another student who drew a picture and he made kind of a story using these 23 different words. But this will be the midterm. And if you're not sure how to deal with verbs, my recommendation for that would be to go to Carrie's work, or you could get them out of the dictionary. And so let's say if you wanted to do one for try, to attempt it. I recommend using the third person perfective. She or he did it. You don't have to, but I think perfective is probably one of the most common ways we use verbs because it's already happened and we're talking about it. And then the third person is usually the easiest way to do that. But you don't have to do it this way. I think that's it's an easier way because there's not, the pronouns are sort of kind of built in there already. But you could certainly, if you wanted to say, I tried, that's totally fine. If you want to say, I'm going to try, fine, whatever, that's fine. But if you're not sure, that third person perfective it's a good place to start. As far as what the other things are, there's interjections. Those are fun. But I think the more useful things would probably be, and we're going to get to these, what we would call postpositions in Tlingit, or relational nouns, which are prepositions in English, like on the table, under the table, around the table, those types of things, because you're going to see those a lot. Once you start learning what they are, then you start looking at Tlingit that's written down or listening to Tlingit. You'll hear them and see them pop up a lot. Any questions about that? Does it sound manageable?
I'm thinking that it would be nice if the rest of us could learn some of the things that other people were trying out instead of just hearing it as a fait accompli at the midterm. And one of the apps that's around is called Quizlet. Mm-hmm. And I know Kashke in Huna uses it, and there's a lot of Tlingit word sets and ways to practice. And I was wondering if there is some way that we could, people could put theirs up there.
Yeah, we could try that. I mean, we could certainly do that as a suggestion if anybody wants to sort of, okay, hold on. If somebody wants to maybe take the lead on that as far as setting it, I'm not exactly sure how to set up. If folks are fluent in Quizlet, Yusikuke Quizlet, then you can maybe help us out by sort of making the set or the, I don't know if there's a group or something. And we're certainly, what I would like you guys to do is, let's say by next Tuesday, so a week from now, Send me what you've got so far. That way we can start kind of compiling a big list, and we're going to go through them. And we're also going to hear from you why you picked the words that you did. So again, it is 15 nouns, preferably new ones. So I'm pretty sure you know sate and sheyi, and you know, I'm not saying it can't be from the beginning Tlingit, because it certainly can. But I would like you to challenge yourself to say, okay, I didn't know this one, but now I'm committing to learning this one. And then 5 verbs, and those, you only have to have that verb in one particular, you don't have to say, I love, I love it, she loves it, we love, just one way, however you want to do it. If you're not sure which way, I recommend third person perfective, like this one, akawa ak, she or he tried it. And then 3 other things. And the types of things that are out there that I think are worth it, I'd prefer if it wasn't interjections like ha, and stuff. I mean, those are fun. Those are great, and we should know them. But I'm trying to think of like things we tie into other things. So these things that we call relational nouns, or we might call them postpositions, just to be on, above, below, around types of stuff. Those are really cool. Directional types of, well, I don't really want to do suffixes yet. We'll get to those. Adjectives, so they modify a noun. Adverbs, they modify a verb. And if you're not sure which one to pick, I have lists of them that we can share. And so when you look at the newer dictionary that is coming out, it will show like parts of speech. So if you move in here and look at things, oops, that's a big page of verb stuff. So you'll see these are all just nouns, nouns, nouns. So there's lots of nouns. And then, oh, I know, I'll find one. So a very common relational noun is ka, which should be, oh, I think it's high tone. So right there. So there's one that says relational base. There's, so one of those, that's a pretty good type of thing to look at. And really it just means like on top of or on the surface of. And then you'll see that there's different ways that those could be used. If you want to use the form, I'll bring some copies on Thursday. I can upload it to our website this evening. So I'll put it under the handouts for tonight's class. And I don't want anybody to freak out. So what happens is you stand up and you take your time and you do what you can. And then what I'll do is I'll make a list of your words, and there'll be 2 little categories next to it. One will say remember, and one will say pronounce. And you'll get a happy face, or like a medium, I don't know what, the stoic face, or the frowny face. And that's it. And that's just saying, maybe I had to remind you of something, or, and then I'll try to circle the area that maybe might need a little bit of work. But if you stand up and do it, A+, even if I'm not saying don't try, but I'm saying I don't like to tie performance and grades too closely together.
Where will the list be that you'll have? Do you mean?
Yeah.
Do a list with our words?
Yeah. So you'll get your words to me. You can email them. You can hand them in, and then I'll copy them. And then I'll also, if there's anything that needs, it'll probably be totally fine. But sometimes I'll get something, there'll be a tone a little off or something. And so if anything needs to be sort of adjusted, I might make that. And then I'll get the list to everybody. I'll probably just upload it. If you want a printed version, you can. I've been trying to reduce paper. I don't mind printing things, but I also, I used to like just come in with like hundreds of pages. So now that we've got things like electronic and we've got published versions of things, it gets a little bit easier.
But Keen, that week before Thanksgiving
Yeah.
is Tuesday and Thursday, the SHI Language Summit.
Oh, that's right.
All day, evenings.
Okay, let's do it the week after Thanksgiving. That way you've got lots of time, do you think?
So people could come to that.
Yeah, so we'll probably just try, I don't know if we'll have class that week. We'll see what kind of activities they've got. But yeah, the language summit is going on that week. Okay. Okay.
So, so yeah, so
So that should be, then let's bump it to last week in November. So then you'll have lots of time to get ready. It's not even like a midterm. It's like a 3/4, 5/8 term. And then, it's not even katoot. It's like,
15th and 15th.
and then
13, 14, 15 is the thing. So
the language summit is going to, yeah, so there's a question, is the language summit open to the public? As far as I know, it is. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of they're only funding like fluent speakers to come, I think. So they're trying to figure out who they're paying for, but it'll be an open event, yes. Oh, and you'll be traveling. Okay.
Could you somebody repeat the dates of that? The language summit?
You have
13, 14, 15 of November, the week before Thanksgiving. So our midterm would then be the 27th and the 29th of November.
And we'll just sign up for spots. If you are traveling that Thursday, you could do it. You could do it the following week. That should be fine. I'll check the calendar. It should be fine.
Why would we be traveling that Thursday?
Oh, I got a message that someone was traveling the week after.
I see.
And then your final is I would like you to write a 1-page letter to somebody. It could be anybody. And you don't have to send it to them, but we're going to read them in class. And it doesn't have to, or like when we start getting into these sort of whole language exercises, here's my set of warnings. Don't translate poems because it gets too, let's just do simple stuff. Let's just talk, right? Let's just stick to basic talking. Don't try to do super big, I mean, if you think you can, but these big sort of, there was no way I could do, don't try to do the big oratory thing. Just, hey, how's it going? Yeah, this thing, just keep it light, keep it casual. I've had folks who've written letters to, and sometimes it gets really heavy. They wrote letters to like grandparents who are now passed on. They've written to their younger selves. They've written to future generations. It could be a big concept if you want it to. But sometimes if you make it a really big concept, like here's my speech at someone's funeral, like don't set yourself up so the moment's so big that you feel like the language has to be perfect, because it certainly doesn't. It just has to just say some stuff. That's the neatest part of this phase of language learning, is that you can actually think of things and then put those things together. So it doesn't have to be some huge performance type of piece. Any questions on either of those things?
So the 3 other things you said, for example, like a relational noun,
Mhm.
is it, you had the example of cup. Do you just want the cup part of it? Or,
That's fine.
okay.
You could-
or a
you
word
could put
that
more.
has it in that?
It doesn't have to be a sentence. It doesn't have to be really a total complete thought. If you wanted to do like cut or cob, you could. That's adding a suffix. By the time you recite, your words will be there. And so I would say start small though. If you're not if you might not have looked at those types of things before. And we will look at those by the time we get to, like, you'll understand what that thing is, all the different parts of speech in Tlingit and how they generally work. But for now, just kind of go grab one. So ka is a very popular one. It's on top of. Da is around or about. That's another really useful one. Let's see. Yi is below. And so those ones, tu is inside. And so if in the House there's a chapter that it's just dedicated to those types of things. And it's got most of them listed. There's probably some that, katut, halfway, that's a relational sort of a thing. And Tlingit, like to be at the halfway mark in Tlingit is, it's like sort of saying it's halfway. And so these are pretty fun. We call them relational because they need one of those, they need a noun or a pronoun in front of it, right? So you could say nadak ka, ach ka, ka, right? But for now, you could just put ka. And if you want to put that dash in front of it, that's pretty helpful. So when you're looking at things the way that we document them now, if there's a long dash in front of it, it means there needs to be something there. They used to, the older way of writing this is everything would be a ka. But then everybody would always say a ka. They'd say nadak a ka. You're like, no, nadak ka. Right? So that's telling you there needs to be something there. And would be the default because that is it's. Right? So there's a pronoun, that's a possessive pronoun. There's a few more we haven't. Our sets of 3, and then we're going to add another set of 3.
So there needs to be something there, but it's not attached as a word.
Correct.
It's not attached.
It's not attached.
So how do you then, how do you show the morphemes that need to be attached?
So if it needs to be attached, there'll be a smaller dash before it. And then also what we call them. So then there's a noun, and a noun can take a suffix. There's a relational noun, and a relational noun needs a noun to belong to, which comes before it, but it cannot take a suffix. A relational base needs to belong to a noun and can take a suffix. So that's kind of how we're categorizing now. And we'll show you lots of examples. I don't want to get too far into it. Right.
So you have morphemes in this dictionary as headwords?
Well, they're more like, yeah, I guess at its smallest component, like, so ka is its sort of the smallest way that it could appear. And it's totally fine to appear like that. It could also appear as ka, so it could be long sometimes. Okay. Any other questions?
With cut, I see it's used both for arriving at a destination or a place, and then it also has on. How do you know when you use that with on? Because I've seen it with like nadak cut, but I've also heard nadak cut.
Yeah, so ka is just sort of generally saying on. Cut would be like you're sort of saying it arrived on the table, but it's something that probably was put there. And then kawu would mean it's just on the table. So there's different ways to say on when we start getting into Tlingit. And in some cases, the only difference is kawu couldn't be used with a verb. So you couldn't say nadak kawu like there's a cat sitting on the table, but you could say nadak ka but I think most speakers would probably prefer nadak kat because the cat got up there and then sat down. But if it's just like a book or something, ka is just fine. But I don't know if there's a real, because it's sort of like there's another phrase, su ha ka or tsu ha kat Qwa'a. It has dawned on us again. And so the other thing is there's all these weather verbs and they can ka onto you. You say, Achkatsiu dakusatan. It rained on me. Ha this is good weather on us. And the on part is just, that's how Tlingit thinks of it, right? So you could say, Achtu yake hakaye antikani. I feel good that the sun is shining on us. And that's also how the ka works. Okay, and so there's another, and so the relational base that you choose, or you could choose an adjective or an adverb. And I know we're getting into these sort of parts of speech and some newer things. You don't have to tie them in with the nouns. You can, if it helps you remember them, but you don't have to tie them. It's just, you remember a noun, you remember one of these things, you remember a verb, right? So there's 5 verbs total, 3 of these other things, 15 nouns. And you get like a month and a half. So my expectations will be very high. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Okay.
What's due next month, next Tuesday? Proposed words.
Yeah, so I think
So we have to come up with a list, but we don't have to know it yet.
no, you don't have to know it at all.
Okay.
But have them,
All right.
if you don't have them all, that's fine. You say, oh, well, I'll do these and then I'll think about the other ones. But then I'd like to start to see them and start going through them. Again, I think it really helps to think of some sort of concept. If you're picking things that you're going to use a lot, that certainly helps. There's lots of fun words out there. But if you pick things that are just sort of not used that often, like, I don't know, kushta yegi, like something like that, or kushta yagu, or something that's a little bit more into like the spirit realm. Like if you want to go there, you can. But I just think start with the really useful stuff, because it tends to stick more because you're using it on a regular basis. And yeah, no pressure, none. So, and also, so the classes are recorded, but when we do like our midterms, I don't record that class, just because that's just our business on how we do when we sort of stand up and recite things, and it's totally okay however you do. Is there another question?
A word that I want to learn, or it's one that they use at parties, and I've heard it pronounced or mispronounced so many different ways. It's when they're handing out the fruit, and it's for you and your crew.
That's your gang.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say satuk. How do they say? I think they say chede kadukakotin. I think that's how they say that. I have to check with maybe Paul Marks. I probably know, but I know the last part is kadukakotin. So the kaku is this comes up in the Raven stories, because sometimes he'll go do things with his gang of birds, right? And then they'll call that dukakotin. I'll find it. I might have to look either on the break or this evening. But kaku, it's his pals. I thought it was kaku. Maybe it's kaku.
I saw it in a story one time when we were proofreading it, and Nora said his buddies, his crew, and I was so excited, but I forgot what story and I didn't write it down.
Okay, yeah, I'll find it. Maybe I just don't have it in here yet. I thought it was kaku. See if crew pulls up anything.
Yeah, That would be a noun, right?
Yeah, so it's actually a kinship term. Sort of like achuni, achkani. Which one is that? And yes, this is a phrase that gets shouted out when you have the basket of fruits and you would look at someone and call their name. And I'll have to make sure I get that. I'll get that whole phrase. And then because I remember we were talking about it when it became clear to me what it was, as we were sitting with Kitya Nai, Paul Marx the Deich, and we were listening to them, and I was like, is that what they're saying? And then he knows the phrase. So Huaku, there it is. So the Raven book that's going to come out, there'll be somewhere, I'm hoping, a PDF version of the stories, because when you have these electronic versions of the stories, you can do these searches. So once I heard you say crew, I remembered because Nora did the translating on a lot of this, on almost all of it. And so then there's the crew. So do huaku. Now we can see it right there. And so kinship terms also require a noun or a pronoun, right? The exception, there you could say it directly to the person. Like, so if your mom is there, you could say atli or atle. If your dad is there, you say ish. But otherwise you would say ach ish, do ish, ha ish, yi ish, right? That's it. Goodness, sheesh. Yidikuka. Chayide. That's how it is. So you'd say Satuk chayide kadu huachutin. I think that's how they say kadu huachutin, teen or tin. So if we were to put that, to just write that, oh, I guess I'll do this. Collective memory. Okay, sheesh. It's a blank. Yide kadu huachutin. Tin or teen? So this would be the phrase, and there's pretty specific phrases. A day, ka day, and so these ka day is used to kill the money. A day is used to feed people for the fire dish. Yi day. So this shows you how Tlingit puts compounds together. So ka is a mouth, yi is below, day is towards. So put it under their mouth. You know, it's really like, or towards under their mouth. There's not really a command verb in there. And then they say kadu huachutin. So you'd say chone. So it could, like cool in the gang. Cool kadu huachu, right? If cool was a person. Their gang, their crew, the folks that they're running with. Okay, sheesh. That's a good one. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I don't have that one in here yet. Okay, I'll add it to the dictionary too at some point. Okay, that's a good point to maybe we'll start here, because I know we were looking at this introduction chapter, but I also want to sort of talk about some of the things that are going on in this chapter as we sort of look at beginning Tlingit in this section that we learn how to say my name, what's your name, and we put a slight shift in the way that we translate that, because it's not wrong. And so I don't really like to say like right or wrong. But when you say like wasa itu wasak, if you really want to look at how that verb is working, do wasak means people call, like you say nadak, you do wasak, people call that table, right? And so khone, you khatu wasak, people call me khone. And so I want to sort of walk us through some of the parts, and then we're going to look at this chapter and sort of move through it, but also retire it and move along in our language journey, continuing to move through the beginning Tlingit workbook, but also incorporating some other things as we go along, and sort of doing a little bit more of looking at what's under the hood of some of these phrases that we might already know. So we start by thinking about, and there's a question, how do you know when to pronounce it like eh and a? So that's a good question. When is the vowel short and when is it long? The answer is, if it's at the end, it's pretty flexible. So people could say ach hine, or people could say ach hini, and they're both fine. We write them short, but you'll hear them long a lot, you'll hear them short a lot. When they're actually in the word, then it's, so like sa is a seal, but sa is not a seal, right? So there are some that are not flexible, and we'll just sort of find them. If it's a suffix at the end of something, then it's pretty flexible, but you can't really say like chut'a. It's got to be chut'a for those longer vowels, and so we just pay attention to. And then I don't know if it's a regional thing or a personal thing, but there's also this kind of thing where if you have some things and you put them together, they'll tend to shorten up, except for the one at the very end. And so we'll look at some examples of how Tlingit does that. But it's basically, if it's a suffix, it could be long or short. It doesn't particularly matter. But otherwise, it's just however it is in the word. It's usually got to stay that way. And then there are some that are regional. So, okay. So let's look at, again, independent pronouns. They don't have a whole lot of uses. What they're used for is to just sort of say, oh, we're talking about you, I'm talking about you, or I'm talking about me, So some of the examples I think we used in here is someone knocks on the door. Adusoe, khataya, khone, it's me, khone. And then, or if we're sort of saying what everybody wants coffee, I might say, khatqa'ach tuwasaku chayu. Me though, I want tea. So it's used, you'll see it pop up sometimes if you really need to clarify who we're talking about. And then the ku'a will usually come after it, or aweh, or ayah. The other times you hear this is with gusu and yadu, wedu, right? That's kind of the only times you ever really see these, right? And then we sort of say, for me, you, him or her, she or he, khat, yanaka, khat, wa'eh, wa'eh, huh. And us, uhan, yuhan, us. Right? So example, we're sitting there talking, and I'll say, yeah, those guys, they already got their fruit. And you'll say, who? Hus away. Those ones there, it's them. Right? Yuhan, you probably hear that one more than the others, because if someone's starting to speak, they might say, Takat Yuhan, Gunach, right? And that's just saying, I'm talking to all of y'all. Or they might say, Takat Yuhan, every single one of y'all, right? And so Yuhan is probably used, Khat is used a lot too, though, I guess, for like, Khat Qa'ah, but me. And then Uhan, if I'm telling a story. So I might say, someone asked me to tell the history of people coming in to Shkakwe. And, you know, I might say, Uhan nawe yaslukach adi. Us, the shukach adi. And you might hear that sometimes in oratory as well.
Can we say the middle one again? For you.
Okay. Yuhan.
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 And there are some places that say Yuan, so that the H isn't really there.
It sounds like the top one.
Yeah, so this one for us, when we're talking about us, Uhan.
Wuhan.
Uhan.
Wuhan.
Yuhan.
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 Us.
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 So the ye part is the one, and we're going to see it in the other forms of this pronoun for y'all, right? Ye is the y'alls, right? So going through and just sort of looking at some examples. So here's those pronouns again up on the top. So you might say, Yaduchat,
Yaduchat.
Yaduchat,
Yaduchat.
Gusuwa'eh,
Gusuwa'eh.
Gusuwa'eh,
Gusuwa'eh.
Hu'aweh,
Hu'aweh.
Hu'aweh,
Hu'aweh.
Uhan ayah shtuknach adi.
Wuhan ayah shuknach adi.
Uhan ayah shtuknach adi.
Wuhan ayah shuknach adi.
Gunash chish yuhan.
Gunash chish yuhan.
Gunash chish yuhan.
Gunash chish yuhan.
Hasageh,
Hasageh.
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 Say we work in the Tlingit restaurant, and you're like, bring that over to those guys. Hasageh. Hasaweh. Those guys. But that's, you know, these examples, it's kind of, you know, that's, or we're talking about someone, oh, did you hear so-and-so got all of these awards? And then they come walk in the door and they'll say, Hu'okwa? Hu'owa. That one, right? Is it that one? That's the only time we really use them, right? And we learn them, we'll watch for them. Uhan and Yuhan are probably used the most. Right? Bonk. So, thinking of how to use these, someone tell me how to say, it's me.
Khataya.
Khataya, khataya.
Khataya.
And can someone else tell me how to say, where are you?
Gusuwa'eh.
Lots of people. Gusuwa'eh.
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 She or he is over there.
Way to her.
Yeah, or what? Way to her. Way to her.
Way to
So gusuhu, way to her, right? So it's all about like seeing how this stuff works when we're putting it together. Is that my mom over there?
We do.
Not there is my mom. Yeah, akwe. And what would the rest of it? Akhla akwe. Akhla akwe. Maybe you don't recognize her. It happened to me one time. I was at a funeral in Klekwan. I had cut all my hair was really long, and I cut it all off. And I was standing there in Klekwan. It was one of my beloved aunties, Ruth Casco. And my mother walked past me, and she looked me right in the face and kept walking. I said, "Mom," and she says, "Oh, you're so handsome. I didn't recognize you." And I thought, what does that mean? Anyways, that's the independence. That's all we kind of use them for. So we're going to move on to the possessives, right? So we were working on these. So if it's mine, ach,
Ach.
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 If it's your, eh, or e. This is one where it could go either way, but if you're from Teslin, it should be long. So just pay attention to how speakers talk in your area. And if it's her or his, duh, duh. And if it's ours, ha, ha. Y'all's, ye, and there, hastu. So these show relationship, all those kinship terms. And you could kind of stack them too, right? So I could say, achlish, achla, du ish, awe. My grandparent, my mother, her father, right? And so you could walk all around your family tree using these. Achla, du ish, du dak, du yit, away hu. How is that person related to you? That is my mother's father's sister's son. Go boom, 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 right? Just by going duh, because it's just, and that's how you can walk through a kinship sort of system. They are also used to show ownership. It's my table. That's my vest. That's so-and-so's shirt. Or to show, like, to tie to these post-possessions. Around me, achda. And that could be about me as well. Achda. Achda teke, yuchiyatunk. Are you talking about me? Right? And so that's the ones you would use for any of those concepts, right? And we're going to get to those sort of direction, location things. And then it's sometimes used to specify who a verb is sort of going towards. So I could say, yi'in kachwanik, which I say to my kids. I told you, right? I told you, yi'in kachwanik. I told it to y'all, right? And there are certain verbs that want to have one of those pronoun e things. Ye'away ha'i wudutletu. That is how we were taught. Ha'i wudutletu. So we'll look at this one with some examples, right? So here's the pronouns again. You can see them up there. Ach, I, du, ha, yi, hastu. Achini awa.
Achini awe.
Achini awa.
Achini awe.
Gusu itla.
Gusu itla.
Gusu itla.
Gusu itla.
Tuji yisaya.
Tuji yisaya.
Tuji yisaya.
Tuji yisaya.
Hakakuwake.
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 Iinakawanik.
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 Hastushishk akwa.
Hastushishk akwa.
Hastushishk akwa.
Hastushishk akwa.
And so some of them, the concepts work kind of different. So when you say hakakuwake, you would probably translate that into English as, this is good weather for us. But it's just, the weather is on us. That's just how it works. There are a lot of those weather verbs. Haka. 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 It snowed on us. Right?
Hastushlish akwe. Is that dot in akwe just to separate the K and the W to show it's not a KW? Or is there actually a glottal stop there?
I don't know if there's a glottal stop. There's some people who really say that there is. And so I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll put it in.
I never hear it.
Akwe.
It sounds like a voiced K. It sounds like agwe to me
Right.
when I hear people say it.
The parts, so I just write it that way. I'm not like on board with one side or the other. But so when we have awe, that's a couple of different sort of things put together, right? So plus we. So is a focus particle. The place that folks probably have heard it most often is someone might say gunishish which is just sort of just putting a little bit more focus on it. Or if you get a name, we're going to call this Nadak, this table. Nadak, and then we would all say Nadak, 4 times. Now it has the name. And that's just part of it. And then some people, when they're kind of new to Tlingit, they'll be like, oh yeah, my name is Nadak. Like, no, the part wasn't part of it. It's just this little focus thing. So weh would be like there. It's that there, right? That thing there, right? But not really even a thing. So then, from that, if we add the question particle in there, and we do our little Tlingit language math, we're going to get ge. So ge is going to go in there. So when ge goes in between and we, it just turns into a k. Akwe. And there's probably not, it's not akwe. There's no like actual stoppage.
But it's not really a kwa. So
Yeah, because it's akwe. They are kind of distinct. It's not akwe, right? So
a kwa.
right.
It's a kwa. Well,
Akwe, akya. Okay. I'll just leave these on there. I'll figure it out later. So, this is my money. Dana yi aya. This is my money. That is my money would be Dana yi awa. Right, like someone's going to pick it up. That's my money. I don't know what I would say, like, this is my money, right? What about, this one is a fun one to know, but it's kind of an interesting construction. It's not about you, or it's none of your business. It's said the same way, just depends on context.
Tlelli dot, yeah.
So, kesh dot at aya. Kesh dot at aya.
Hesh dot at aya.
Kesh dot at aya.
Hesh dot at aya.
So context is really important for this phrase, right? Like, say like some people are talking and it's kind of an intense conversation, and my kid's just sitting there staring at them because this stuff is interesting sometimes as human beings. I was like, and then she'll look away. It could also be like if someone's worried about something, you could say, it's not yours. Right? So it could be used to comfort people. Or you say, you talk about me? It's not about you. What about, that is her child? Do yadi awa? Do yadi awa? Do yadi awa? Where is our food? At the Tlingit restaurant, right? Gusuha at chai. Gusuha at chai. Just be careful with, like, don't just come walking into somebody's house and say that. Careful. But that's just how you would put it together. Okay, any questions about those?
Could you go back so I could? Oh, there it is. Okay.
And I'll put these slides up. It's like, okay. Feel free to write them down, but I'll put them up as well.
so Tlingit at chai dakahidi.
I think a starting point would be maybe trying to find a restaurant that would allow us to have a Tlingit meal once a month. Where we'll go and pay for the meal, but we want to reserve it for Tlingit speakers so we can just do everything in Tlingit.
Cook it.
Yeah, I guess we could cook it too, or we could just have like a Tlingit dinner. be fun. That'd be wonderful.
In Vancouver, they serve First Nations food.
Oh yeah.
When there was a gathering there, and some of our family went down, the line went all the way down the block when they found out that what they had there.
Oh really? Nice. Yeah, you have this big menu. There'll be like the kashesiku part of the menus, like the fermented foods, little section, like the little special insert that goes okay, so we're going to do objects and subjects, but we should take a break first. So let's come back at a quarter till, and we'll pick it back up. Okay. So the first two sets exist really outside of verbs, right? So one is totally independent of everything. The other is basically usually tying two nouns together, right? Someone's something, basically. But also used to get some of these relational terms sort of tied together as well. Kinship, body parts. Body parts and kinship terms always need to have some sort of noun that they belong to. And so do those directional things. But then we get into objects and subjects. So objects, they receive the action of the verb. The verb happens to them, right? There are a couple of exceptions in Tlingit where you'll use an object pronoun, but that's actually the subject. Those are really rare. They're usually kind of plural motion verbs. So these ones, they're a little bit different. And so one of the things to note is if it ends with a hyphen, it attaches to the verb itself. If there's no hyphen, it's its own word. There's chat, ha, and yi. Those are written separate from the verb. The rest are attached to the verb. Okay? And then we'll just say them, and you don't hear these ones on their own, right? And there's a difference between the independent chat and this one, chat. The independence, if we sort of go back and look at those independent pronouns, every one of them has at least one high tone vowel. But those are the only pronouns that have any high tones at all. All the rest are low. All the rest are always low. Okay? We get back to the objects. So if it happened to me, khat. Khat. Happened to you, but that's going to attach to a verb, right? And same with the khat, right? And we'll look at examples. It'll make a little bit more sense. The third person is usually it's usually nothing, right? Happened to me, happened to you, happened, right? But if there is a third person subject and a third person object, she did it to him, he did it to her, he did it to it, then that object will be ah. That's the only time that it switches to the letter A, because otherwise you wouldn't know that there were two things in it, right? And so we'll also, it's another sort of thing, like here's this thing, we'll look at examples, and it'll make sense, I think, through the examples. It happens to us, ha, ha, ha. Happens to y'all, ye, ye. Happens to them, hus, hus. But these ones we're going to have to look at examples. But the reason we're doing this so that once you go back into this chapter saying, I'm called this, you're called that, now we can use that with all of these different pronouns, right? So for example, she or he loves me. Khat sekhan. Khat sekhan. You are good. Iyak. She or he is strong. Chitzin. Chitzin.
Chitzin.
Chitzin.
Chitzin.
They heard our voices. They heard us. And it was, I guess, I was working with Kahwan Ish, George Davis, and I was trying to get, all these, we were doing all of them. I love you. I love him. I love them. And then the one I was trying to do, like, I heard them, but he gave me the verb for, like, herding sheep. Cats. And I was like, wait, what is this? I was like, oh, is that like a shepherd? He's like, but they heard our voices. Ha sewa'ach.
Ha sewa'ach.
Ha sewa'ach.
Ha sewa'ach.
How are y'all doing? Wasayiyati.
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 They are smelly. Aswushachan.
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 And that third person can also be it or them. Like those potatoes are stinky. Those socks are smelly. And wushachan is not always like smelling bad. It just has a strong smell. Okay. So we see this in this chapter, right? So here's the verb. The pattern, the way that verbs are documented is they show you this thing that we call the theme. And the theme is sort of like saying, here's the skeleton of the verb. You see the letter O right there. What do you think that's telling you?
Object.
There's an object. You see the capital S. What is that telling you?
Subject.
There's a subject. They cannot go away. They have to be there. Okay? And if it's not there, you cannot add it. This is just something to note. That the theme will tell you what the verb has. And you can't, it's already sort of been determined. What's this zero thing right here?
Classifier.
The classifier group. It's a zero group classifier. That means we should expect it to be usually ya or a zero. But it could also, well, if you say like introduce yourself, it'll go to a plus D. There's a verb for that. It's the same verb. And then this is the root, sak. And it comes from it's related to the verb root sa. That's what it comes from, which is to name or to call out something. And sa is also a noun, right? Ach sa yi, my name. Sa is a noun and it can be possessed. Ha sa hu, an kasa hu, the names on the land, right? So then what we see in this chapter is it's showing us, let's see. So the question is, can ye be substituted for I in iyake or ikhishu? Yes. So what you have is you learn how to spot, is that an object? Okay, I know which list to pick from to change that. And so we're going to do that with a few verbs here. But what we see is this sort of question and answer. And it's sort of saying, once you hear that pronoun, you should know which one to use to answer with. This is something that's very common, I think, to get a little slippery with folks who grew up hearing the language, but maybe not speaking it all the time. And so you might say, I might stand up and say, Chone, you do a sock. But there's something missing there, right? What might be missing in that statement? Chat, right? So, but maybe there's someone right there named Chone, right? So that's something as we sort of hear it, and this is the same thing. If someone says, wasa idu a sock, you learn how to hear that. Wasa iyati. Those are both object pronouns, you, right? What are you? How are you called? How are you doing? Right? And then, so if you hear you're going to answer with chat. If I were to say chat, like my favorite, I'm going to write Tlingit language soap operas someday. Like when I retire from teaching, I'm just going to write a series of like juicy soap operas. and someone's going to wake up from like a coma. Right? So like, how am I called? Like, you know, when we do this, it's really just an exercise to sort of start shifting this pronoun. But now as we look at it from an intermediate level, we say, what are we actually doing? Oh, we're changing that pronoun, and we see it the way that it should sort of change, right? So someone says, "Iyak again. Are you good?" Just a little bit more whole language, right? So we'll just sort of say these all together. Wasa iduasak.
Wasa iduasak.
Wasa iduasak.
Wasa iduasak.
Pila yuchatduasak.
Hila
You
iduasak.
gotta pick a name. I want to say, Hoots yuchatduasak.
Hoots iduasak.
Then I was thinking about this a little bit more. I think it should usually be you, and I think it should usually be low tone. But I think this is one of these ones where it's like people will say, "Ye do a sock, you do a sock, you do a sock," right? I don't think it particularly matters because this one just it's a super flexible one. The pattern though, with the K at the ending, if there's a K at the end of the verb to show repetition, you would expect a U low tone in the front. And it happens to do with the specific way this verb is put together. The one thing, there's a couple things we want to start doing though, is controlling the tone of our language so that we're speaking Tlingit and not Tlingit that sounds like English. And also, sometimes as we drill things, as a teacher, I find myself putting emphasis on something because I want you to hear that pronoun. But then students end up saying, "Yuchat do a sock," right? And that chat is like super high. And it should just be, "Yuchat do a sock," right? So we get that sort of, everybody say, "Yuchat do a sock."
Yuchat do a sock.
Yuchat do a sock.
Yuchat do a sock.
You would do a sock.
You do a sock.
You would do a sock.
You 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 do a sock.
So is that, are all three of those saying, "I am called"?
So the first one is, so,
Your English is wrong on there, that's why.
oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
whoops. Oh, thank you. Nice job. So what is this one? I just came out of my coma, right? I should say that. You are, oh wait, yeah, are. And then, yeah, away. Thank you for catching that. And then there was a question, what would you say if you slapped someone in a Tlingit soap opera? Well, I have a younger brother, and sometimes you can be kind of mean with your siblings. I didn't do this very hard, but I said, I can teach you Tlingit, brother. It's okay. I said, "Iyak," and then I slapped him in the face. And then I said, "Iyak," and he went like that. And I was like, "You're learning." Right, so, yeah, what touch is to slap someone in the face.
Wasa do a sock. The English is the same for wasa chet do sock.
Oh, this one too, yeah. Thank you. Okay. Okay, there we go. Now we got it. Jeez.
Oh, I was so worried.
And I do this all the time. Because then, like, the slides that you're going to see, like, I got to conjugate this verb and then copy the slide so that it goes step by step. And so there's a lot of processes. And as the more processes you add, the more likely I'm going to make a mistake. There's a really good question here, is should the you be high tone? I think no, but I think it's fine if it is. I think it's fine if it is, I think it's fine if it's yay. So the reason I think it gets a little bit slippery here is because you would say, if I said, "Yechat uwasa," that is how she or he named me. So in that case, it would be ye, because I'm talking about this specific thing. So the ye with a high tone, you're going to see pop up before some different verbs. It has to have that high tone to mean like this, right? So if someone said, you were crazy last night. I might say, that's how I was, right? Ye is the sort of, yeah, like that, right? So you see the ye pop up quite a bit. So if I'm giving some sort of longer explanation of my Tlingit name, Jacobs. So I could say, my name is Chone. That's how I was named by my grandpa, whose in-law was named Chone, and in English he was Fenton Jacobs. So once you put the KW at the end, there's a few different verbs that'll get a K at the end, and they'll get a U before the verb. And that means it happens regularly, right? So when Tlingit starts getting into like on a regular basis, all the time, the verb gets a little interesting. There's a bunch of different things that are going to happen whenever you want to signal that kind of stuff. So I think from the technical standpoint, I would predict U, O tone, and then a KW, because the KW is at the end. But I think this phrase is used so much that it's just become high over time, just because it's easy to sort of switch back and forth between those two things. Okay, but that's a lot. And there was a typo. So let's look at a different example then.
Me?
Yes.
I have the family.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we saw right in between the you and the duasak. Right there is where the object pronoun goes. So how would we say we are called kagwantan? Someone's gonna have to say it loud.
Kagwantan comes first.
Kagwantan.
How you do a sock? Close. You how do a sock?
Yeah, because it's yuchat, so that's where that reveals where the pronoun is and where it has to change. Kagwantan yuha duasak.
Kagwantan yuha duasak.
Kagwantan yuha duasak.
Kagwantan yuha duasak.
So I've been thinking about tone because I was thinking about this other phrase. Suye ik kwasatin. Right? And I hear people say, Suye kwasatin. And I say it myself, right? And I'm like, I think that's like, see you later. Right? I think that's exactly where that comes from. Suye ik kwasatin. There's only one high tone in that phrase. And it's at the end. And so this is something that we could still have lots of fun. Tlingit is fun in its own ways and funny and interesting, but we also have to watch for those patterns that are kind of bleeding in. And so I think that might be the yuchat type of thing as well, but that might be something else. It is called table. Nadak, you do a sock.
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 Hey, I don't know. They are called wolverines. I guess it could be wolverines.
So even higher than
Nusk, Nusk, you has do a sock.
Nusk, you has do a sock.
Nusk you hastuwasak.
Nusk hastuwasak.
And so the same thing, like as we're learning this, we might catch ourselves going, Nusk you hastuwasak, right? You hat, or we're just really putting this, and I think it's fine. But now we can start to say, hey, let's get that thing back down where it needs to go. Because I think we learn this as we're building patterns. Our brain is just focused on the thing that changes. It's fine. But then we just sort of, we iron it out. We iron out that shirt. There's another thing where with this hus, if the thing before it ends with a vowel, a lot of fluent speakers would just say the letter S. So they'd say, Nusk used to a sock. That's how you would hear a lot of fluent speakers say that. And then they'd say, Nusk used to a sock, where it just contracts. But it's a totally optional thing. I recommend just saying hus for now. And then just, that's something you might notice a little later. But if you hear someone saying something, and you're just like, what is the waist part? Oh, that thing is contract, and then there's a verb right after, then it's probably contract. You are called Raven.
Yesh you iduwasak.
Okay. Yesh you iduwasak.
You iduwasak.
Yesh you iduwasak.
Yesh you iduwasak.
So it's a very useful verb, but it's kind of awkward to come up with these, right? What are you? But you'll see it. Like, there are some parts of the Raven stories where Raven will encounter someone and they'll say, "Atusuwe wa." Yesh ayachat yesh yachat duwasak yesh. Atusuwe wa. And so you'll see that in sort of things. And then as you get to know somebody, these are things that you can just sort of start asking. Like if I hear that somebody speaks some Tlingit, there was a guy who used to work at Costco, and I heard that he spoke Tlingit. I was like, oh, really? He's like, he's not there anymore. He checks the receipts, So I heard about us, he's checking my receipt. It's like, Tlingit kechiyach. He looked at me and goes, and then he signed my thing. Okay. So now let's try this with a different verb. Okay. So there's our list. We see them up above. How would I say I'm good?
Chatyake.
Chatyake.
Chatyake. Chatyake.
We are good. And we're not bragging, right? We're just get that out of the way. But we're good.
Hayake.
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 You are good.
Yake.
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 Y'all are good.
Yake.
Yake. Yake.
Yake.
He or she or it is good.
Yake.
Yake. Yake. They are good.
Hasyake.
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 So a big part of learning Tlingit is figuring out where are the things with the spinning wheel. What's on the wheel? Where do I spin it when I want to use this particular thing? And then you're going to learn how to use these pretty dynamically, right? And so there's a difference between, you could say, Chwacha, I ate it, and Chatwucha, I was eaten, right? There's some cases where I want to be the subject, right?
So English is using the subject pronoun. Tlingit has the object pronoun. So what's the feel for what that really is in Tlingit?
That's a good question. And so pretty much every state verb will use an object pronoun. So like this is the unfortunate, like, me good Tlingit, right? Eh,
But how does it feel?
I think it's interesting because as an object, you're typically receiving the action.
Mhm.
And for English, but it's not like you're like, I am good. So you have this linking verb, which English uses a lot.
Mhm.
It does not have those, right? The is, are, am, will be. It doesn't have those. And so to think of how states of being, you could probably theorize that these states of being sort of happen to you. There are a couple that have like some agency, like Aunt Huanuk would be, I feel anger. Like I am touching it and feeling it. So that one is a subject. So anger is a subject pronoun, Huanuk. Most of the other ones, and then there's a few where you could say, to say I feel good. How would I say I feel good? Well, I feel happy. And that's fine. I feel happy. Ach tuwu yake, ach tuwu segu. So if it's ach tuwu segu, I feel happy. How would I say we feel happy? Ha tuwu segu.
So happy.
You feel, yeah, good, whichever. You feel happy. Itu woo sagu. Y'all feel happy. Ye to woo sagu. She or he feels happy. Do to woo sagu. Because now we're not using an object pronoun, we're using a possessive pronoun. Because to woo, my thoughts, spirits, intentions, emotions, desires, to woo. So that's where you learn how to spot these. Once you see to woo, possessive pronoun. So then it goes ha, I, ye, du, hastu. But once you see chat yak chat, ha, I, ye, zero, and then has. Right?
So when we learn another language, we learn another way of understanding the world.
Yeah.
So I want to understand the world such that goodness is happening to me. Is that how I should understand this?
I think so. Right.
Oh.
And so it's because you can have a subject for this very verb. So I could say, you made me better. Right? So someone can do that kind of thing too. But for a lot of these feelings and things, and this one in particular, we've been coached by elders to be careful with this one, because you don't want to say like, I'm good. Because then like something bad's gonna happen to you. That's just the way it is. But yeah. And so that's with all of these, and then there's a whole bunch of state verbs that you can learn how to use now. Once you learn that chitzin is strong. So chitzin is strong. How would you say, I am strong? Ha-chitzin, ha-chitzin, e-chitzin, ye-chitzin, chitzin, has-chitzin. Sick, yanik, chat-yanik, ha-yanik, e-yanik, ye-yanik, yanik, has-yanik. Chikudzi, chat-chikudzi, e-chikudzi. And it says, so there's a whole bunch of state verbs. Most of them work just like this.
So it's like unique. I can get that because the sickness is from outside and it comes to me.
Right. And which you could argue maybe all states of being happen to people.
We don't have to argue about it. We know from the grammar.
That's right there. Right. It shows us, right? So we can analyze all these different, and then there's a few of them where the tu wu, like my spirit is this way, right? And then that shows too, like there's a little bit of a distance, it's not quite me, it's this thing that happens to my spirit. And that's usually happy, sad, feeling good. Achtuwu kindeu dekin, that's what Johnny used to say. The spirit is soaring. Okay.
My mom always tells me feelings aren't facts.
Yeah, right? And then there's some of them that are choices, like Khan Chwanuk, or you could say Khan Achtuyeyeti. But the anger one seems to be definitely a choice. You can get, because you're doing something. Okay. So how about I am eagle moiety? Yeah, Chak na chatzati. So we hear that now. Long high, long low, short low, long low, right? Chak na chatzati. So then, how does the pattern generally work with this one? Do we know? So we have seti, which is, there's the verb, to be. What do we have next to that? The pronoun. So there's the chat. So let's walk through these, and then we'll talk about how this sentence can be used in different ways. So how would we say, we are eagle moiety? Chak na chasiti. You are eagle moiety. Chak nach isiti. Right? So we see the I attached to the verb. Right? Y'all are eagle moiety. Chak nach yisiti. And so we write ye as its own word, we write ha as its own word, but they're going to kind of ye siti, ha siti. They're going to kind of run into each other a little bit. That's something that we got to get used to and to keep in mind, because we'll see it in other patterns. She or he is eagle moiety. Chak nach siti. There's that zero, right? She or he is a zero. They are eagle moiety. Chak nach hasiti. So this verb siti, it means to be one of them. And whatever them is going to be the thing right before the pronoun with the after it, right? So you'd say, shukach adich ha-siti. We are shukach adi. Ku ad shatuwuch chatzati. I am a teacher. So this just means to be a member of a group. I guess if we were members of the Moose Lodge, I don't know what we say. Ziskuch ha-siti. I don't know. Probably doesn't work in the language, but this works for clans. This works for ethnicities. This works for moieties. This works for careers. This works for qualities. Kanashki dekach sati. She or he is a poor person. Yakutzegei shawatch sati. She's an intelligent woman. And so any sort of to be this type of thing. So this is where you can put people in some of those. You know, it could be a career. Wachwan chasati. They are policemen. Right? But then the comes right before the object pronoun. Then you're going to get the sati. And let's see, there was a question. Is I not written as a separate word like ha and ye just for convenience? It's a good question. So the I and the a So, and this was standardized within the last probably 10 years. There was some debate about it, was whether we should write just ha and yi, just connect them to the verb. There were two sort of threads of logic, though. One was the verbs are going to get too long if you just attach the longer ones to it, which I'm like, it's not too big a deal. But two, we noticed a few things, like, so take the verb, so yuk-e is good, kesh-ushke is terrible or evil, horrible. So if we can say kesh-ushke, so we'd say kesh-chat-ushke, just like Michael Jackson, right? But then we'd say kesh-ishke. So that combines with that ushke. E plus u is e. Kesh-ishke. You are terrible.
You all are terrible.
Right? Kesh-ushke. Then you would say kesh-ha-ushke. So there would be a separation. Kesh-yi-ushke. You wouldn't say kesh-yi-ishke. So we see those two don't combine with everything. So that's why we write them separate. Okay.
But the you singular is the only one that does combine.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Nobody's terrible. Just okay.
So would it literally be the absence of goodness? To not be. To not be because.
Wait, I got another one on, what do I call this one? Oh, negation. Well, you first got to look at this guy because he's cool. So when we think about getting negative, going to negative town, right? And like, it just means we're saying it's the not version of things. So there's a couple of things in here. And so this one, so here's the pronouns and the subjects and stuff. This is kind of a little bit advanced, but the one thing I did want to show you was this one. Is Seth Cable was doing some research on things in Tlingit where there's a set of words, and this might be all of them, where technically you could say is that way, is not that way, is the total opposite of that way. And there's a couple of these where I've never heard anybody say kashuke. I was trying to bring it back in just like a funny way. But so you'd say for it's good, yuk-e. Kashuke. Kashushke. So this is what happens. So like we'll go classifiers plus I, minus I, totally different classifier. So that tells us it's actually a different verb. It's the antonym. It's the Dr. Evil. It's the Darth Vader, right? So similar, you have smart, yakutzege.
Yakutzege.
Not smart, keshyakuske.
Yakutzege.
And foolish or dumb, keshyakushke.
Yakutzege.
Lucky, shechet. Not lucky, keshushchet. Unlucky, keshushchet. Tidy, unique. Not tidy, keshunique. Messy, keshushnique. Fun, kasagu. Not fun, keshkeske. Boring, keshkeske. Strong, chitzin. Not strong, keshushzin. Weak, keshushchin.
classifier.
So that SH classifier is popping up in most of these, right? And that it's kind of associated with unwanted things, unwanted states and behaviors. But then there's this one down here, and chin would be for trash talking on the basketball court in a pretty mean way.
Isn't that CH from the SH?
I think it probably is, because
Yes, and
couldn't really go scene. So it probably is a combination. But you still have the L classifier in there.
Yeah.
Right? It's an interesting, that one's an interesting switch. Right?
Yeah, to get the sh.
Right? Scene. It's too awkward.
To go back to that for a second. So the scene is the L is the classifier.
Mm-hmm. Scene.
So why is it still there in the negative antonym?
For this one, it's the verb root itself actually goes through a change. So that one's, and Seth's, he might have some theories in there in his paper. Okay. So we'll wrap this up by looking at the subject, and then Thursday we'll just go back into beginning Tlingit and start walking through that. And we'll start, but the idea here is like, hey, look at these things, and we go through and we start noticing them. And we've already probably learned a bunch of stuff that maybe haven't focused on them, but once we start focusing on them, I think we start seeing them. So the next ones are the subjects, right? And so the subjects are always totally attached to the verb. They're always right before the classifier, and they're talking about who's doing the verb. So if I'm doing the verb, it's kha. You're doing the verb, it's I. The third person, she or he, is always zero. Always, okay? We are t. Y'all are ye. And they are hus. Okay? So here's some examples. I see her or him or it. Chatin, 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 chatin. Do you know it? Yisikuge,
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 Yisikuge.
And this is one I hear some people say isikuge, and that Y should be on there. Yisikuge.
Yisikuge.
She or he saw it or her or him. Wusateen. Wusateen.
Wusateen.
We hate it, or her, or him. Tushikan.
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 Y'all love her or him or it. We hate it, but you all love it. Mayonnaise. Yisakhan.
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 Mayonnaise. Apologize to the people who like mayonnaise. They are eating it. Hasacha.
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 So by the end of beginning Tlingit, we're starting to sort of move both of these. Usually we start with the objects, then we start with the subjects. In intermediate Tlingit, we start doing some things where we're moving them both, right? And then eventually you start to realize which ones you would pick to say which particular things.
When we were saying, like, cause 13, it's a high tone, but when we're saying they see it, 13, it's no longer a high tone.
Yeah, those are two different verbs. So chatin, I see it. Wusatin would be they saw that specific thing. And so
It's saw.
yeah. But it could also be see right now. So they're two different verbs. I probably shouldn't have
Yeah.
did that. Yeah.
Yeah, we see
The difference.
that she or he could see him.
So like Chatin. I see it. I see a chair. Kaya kajit chatin. Gucha chatin. Cake chatin. They're just things. But if they are specific things, like that chair, that, like I've been looking for my cup. Chosatin. Now it's a different verb. And so it's low instead of high. And it also gets the S classifier. It's a good thing that you're watching for that, though, because one of the last things I think when we start learning verbs, we generally start with objects, subjects, classifier, then we start looking at the verb root, and the root is going to start changing. We'll notice it changing. It's going to be long and high, long and low, or short and high. Those are your three options. And it's a formula. It's a number of different things, and then you can predict what it's going to be. But usually we save that stuff for later. It's one of those things where I say, take a look at it, but don't get to the whole reason why yet. Okay. So we'll pick up here on Thursday. And then it's a lot, but then we just start looking at examples, and then we'll start seeing how that stuff is being used. There's also the weather chapter in beginning Tlingit. In future versions, I think Kaya Worrell had this idea. Move the weather chapter further towards the end, which I think kind of makes sense, or at least divide it into two, because the weather chapter starts going like, it's raining now, it's going to rain, it did rain, but we'll look at that. We'll look at that as well and start talking about how those verbs are actually changing. Okay. Gonna choose 15 nouns, 5 verbs, 3 other things. Don't freak out though. Everybody will be fine. And then we'll pick up here on Thursday.
After Thanksgiving, it's late